Hello everyone and welcome back to A Bit Tactical, where today I'm going to be covering two operatives, the Tempestor for the Aquilons team and the Grenadier, because these guys I think actually work pretty well together and their strategies that I've come up with have kind of meshed together well a little bit. If you don't know how these guys work, I like to get straight into the guide portion, imagining that you already know how the operative work and how the team works. If you need to know how the team works, I have a whole guide on my channel for that. If you want to know specifically how these operatives work, just a straight stat line and rules read, it's going to be at the end of this video. There's timestamps at the bottom for you to go through. But I like to just get to the guide part because that's my favorite part of this team and of this game in general. So without further ado, let's get right into it. All right, let's get right to the strategies, starting out with the least likely strategy that you're going to use, and that's using adjust coordinates with a stun grenade, either with your Tempestor or with your Grenadier. Now, the reason I bring up the Grenadier is because he just comes with a stun grenade, so you don't have to use your equipment slot for this. You can just do it with him. However, he does have a lot of other uses, so I wouldn't really recommend it for that. However, with the Tempestor, the strategy also does have a lot more merit to it. He, of course, has 3 APL naturally, so he can control objectives from your enemy more easily than everybody else on your team. That's number one. If you use something like drop and secure, it's even easier to use that. However, he also has 3 APL. So now he can also capture a mission objective and then throw a stun grenade at somebody. Potentially, and again, it's on a 3+, potentially reducing APL and stopping your opponent from doing something really useful. Especially against horde teams, they do tend to clump up, especially on certain maps. So you could get maybe 2 or 3 models into this, and then you could really put a big dampening effect on whatever plan your opponent is going to go with. That's not even to mention the fact that with your Tempestor, you can use a firefight ploy for free with them. So you can do this, use adjusted coordinates, not even have to use CP for it. And then your Tempestor is now concealed still, right? If they're in cover, that's even better. They're obscured, and they have a more than decent chance to survive. Well, better than anybody else on your team. However, if you do want to do this specific strategy, it might be better to do it with, just a normal trooper. However, that is still something to consider to keep in the back of your mind with these two troopers. Now, something that you definitely do need to consider doing is keeping both of these guys on the ground turning point 1, or dropping them down turning point 1, whichever you want to do. The reason for this is that your Grenadier has a lot more uses than just his Melt-A-Bomb. Yes, his Melt-A-Bomb is really good. However, it only has that 3-inch range. Once you do it, you're basically dead, and there's nothing else you can do. Instead, consider him as a support character. He's throwing out stuns, he's throwing out smokes, and of course, if things do get hairy and they start pushing on your front line, you have an easy opportunity to counter them and go in with that 3-inch Melt-A-Bomb and kill them, right? However, before he does die, you're going to get some smokes, which gives you more survivability. You're going to get some stuns, which is able to stall your opponent for just a little bit longer if you go with this. And handing out that 3rd APL to him for the Tempestor makes all of this a lot easier. In one of my matches, I actually did get an opportunity to do everything that I just talked about, where I already had my Grenadier right in the middle of the map. My opponent also brought somebody up really close, within 3 inches. I gave my Grenadier the 3rd APL, the previous turning point. Next turning point, I activated. I threw out a smoke grenade. First, I threw out my Melt-A-Bomb, killed somebody. I threw out my stun. It only worked on 1, even though I got 2 people within it. And then I dropped a smoke grenade on my Grenadier just to keep him safe. And it ended up working. He ended up surviving up to turning point 3, which was really cool. But yeah, treating him as a support unit with the Tempestor, giving him that extra APL is really good. Speaking of, your Tempestor does give out that extra APL, and he himself has 3 APL, making him really good at controlling objectives. He's also one of your few, if only, melee operatives that you can use. With that being said, having him fight and die near objective marker is probably the place to go, but do make sure you get the full use out of him. He can use 1 firefight ploy for free. Now, do note, if he's not dropping, he doesn't get adjust coordinates, and he can't use Tempest's exemplars because he has 3 APL natively, so he can't use it. I think they made that specifically so that he can't do like multiple mission actions or something, or like a mission action and then plant beacon for free. So your Tempestor is really good at being on the front lines with the rest of your team, or at least your assaulting team, right? If he dies, it's not that big of a deal because his abilities are really, self-contained almost. Like, yeah, he can use that firefight ploy for himself, but he only has access to 2, and both of them are really just hot drop and Progena, which hot drop you would have to be on the enemy side or drop from vantage, and Progena is only about healing yourself. So this is one of the more expendable leaders than anybody else, even though he does hand out that extra APL, because with the Tempest's Aquilons, their faction ability makes it so that having that 3rd APL, is really nice and really good. I'm not trying to downplay it at all and say it's bad or anything, right? It is good. It's not as useful as it would be like with the Kazarkin, right? The Aquilons are a very aggressive team, and you should use your leader aggressively as well. Currently, my strategy is to split my team, especially now with 11 operatives, right? Split my team into 2 halves and fight over both my home objective and the center objective. That way, you get full use out of the drop marker. You have an abundance of bodies on both sides, and you can always have a fallback position if things get really, really bad. But usually, that if you're an Aquilons player, you know how the match is going by the end of turning point 2, okay? If they're a little bit cagey, having your Tempestus Aquilon or your Tempestor out there on the front lines is going to be really helpful. Same thing with your Grenadier. These 2 models, you want them close to the front line, you want them aiding everybody else, and then you want them right there in the perfect position to do a counterattack, right? If somebody gets charged, a trooper gets downed, your Melta gets killed, whatever the case may be, you want one of these guys to be there to be able to do that, deal that damage, or to support somebody else so they can deal that damage. All right, everybody, that's it for this video, at least the guide portion. That's just my thoughts. Remember, guide people, I like you more than I like everybody else. The rules read people. I like you more than I like the rules read people. Okay? And that's it. Stop watching the video. But don't forget to subscribe and like and all that good stuff. And I'll see you later. All right, let's start with the Aquilon Tempestor. He's got 3 APL, a 6-inch move, a 4-up save, and 9 wounds. Nothing too crazy. A lot of the new Special Ops teams' stat lines seem to look like this. He's also got options to a few different things. The Hotshot Las Carbine, which is 4 attacks, hitting on 3s, 3-4 damage. Nothing special about that. That's going to be powered that's going to be coupled with the Fist, which is 3 attacks, hitting on 3s, 2-3 damage. Then you have your Hotshot Las Pistol, 4 attacks, hitting on 3s, 3-4 damage, range 8. That's going to be paired with your your Power Weapon, which is 4 attacks, hitting on 3s, 4-6 damage, lethal 5. And then your Relic Bolt Pistol, which is 4 attacks, hitting on 3s, 3-5, range 8, lethal 5. And that's going to be paired with your Chainsword, which is 4 attacks, hitting on 3s, 4-5. Personally, I like the Relic Bolt Pistol with a Chainsword. However, the Power Weapon is always a good way to go. The Tempestor also comes with a passive and an ability. The passive is Tempestus Veteran. Once per battle, you can either use a Firefight ploy for 0 CP if this is the specified Tempestus Aquilon operative, or the command reroll Firefight ploy for 0 CP if this is the operative the attack or defense dice was rolled for. Pretty self-explanatory. You can use a Firefight ploy for free. However, just know that he cannot use the Tempestus Exemplars because he does have 3 APL natively, so he's never going to be able to use that ploy, just so you know. And then he has the command ability. It's a support action, so this does pair up with the comms device. Select one other friendly Tempestus Aquilon operative, excluding the Servo Sentry, visible to and within 6 inches of this operative until the end of that operative's next activation. Add 1 to its APL stat. This operative cannot perform this action while within control range of an enemy operative. So always handing out APL, that's really good. Makes him a little bit more of a support character, but do not discredit the fact that he is also a really good killing character. Let's move on to the Aquilon Grenadier. He's got 2 APL, a 6-inch move, a 4-up save, and 8 wounds. Standard Tempestus Aquilon stat line. He's got the Hot Shot Las Pistol that's combined with the Fist, which is 4 attacks hitting on 3s, 3-4, range 8. The Fist are 3 attacks hitting on 4s, 2-3 damage. He also comes with a Melt-A-Bomb, which is 4 attacks hitting on 3s, 5 damage for his normal damage, and 3 for his crit. Range 3 inches, devastating 3, which means that he automatically does that damage as upon hitting a crit, which is 3 damage that cannot be blocked. Heavy, reposition only, which means he cannot dash. And then limited 1, which means you can only do it 1 time. And piercing 2, which means your opponent will only be able to roll 1 dice unless he has an invulnerable save. They also comes with the passive ability, which is the Grenadier. This operative can use frag, crack, smoke, and stun grenades. See universal equipment. Doing so doesn't count towards any limited uses you have, so if you've already selected them from your equipment. And then whenever this operative is using a frag or crack grenade, improve the hit stat of that weapon by 1. So he actually does have a lot of use outside of just his Melt-A-Bomb, though obviously killing someone with the Melt-A-Bomb is really good. All right, rules read people, that's it for you and me. Just so you know, I like you better than I like the other dudes. I don't even like guides that much. It's not like I make my whole channel around it. Anyways, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and also comment something down below. And I'll see you next time.